Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Growing Your Exports, What the EXIM Bank Can Do for You. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Noah and I am founder and president of Shipping Solutions. Since 1995, our export documentation and compliance software has helped thousands of successful exporters more efficiently generate accurate export documents and stay compliant with import-export regulations. To help educate our customers and the wider international trade community, we regularly host free webinars like this one on the various aspects of international trade. Today we are lucky to have Jonathan Brady, Business Development Specialist with the Minority and Women-Owned Business Outreach Group at the Export-Import Bank of the United States, as our speaker. Based in Washington, D.C., Jonathan possesses a strong background in international relations and economics from having worked for the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, the U.S. Treasury Department's International Banking Office, and 10 years with the Ohio Department of Development's International Trade Division. Before joining EXIM, Jonathan worked at Export DC, a division of the DC Department of Small and Local Business Development. Jonathan holds a BA and a Master of Financial Economics from Ohio University and is a 2009 graduate of Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies with a Master of International Public Policy. So thank you, Jonathan, for joining us today. Before we get started, I'm going to just explain a little bit how today's webinar is going to work. All attendees at today's webinar are muted, and at the end of his presentation, Jonathan has agreed to take your questions, which you can submit through our Zoom webinar Q&A window on your screen. So please use the Q&A window, not the chat window. I will be monitoring the Q&A window and ask as many questions as time allows. This webinar is being recorded. If you do not wish to be part of this recording, please log out now. We will be making the recording available to everyone who registered for this webinar in a few days, sometime next week, so you can watch the webinar at that time. So, Jonathan, if you are ready, please go ahead and share your slides and begin your presentation.
Thank you very much, David. I want to extend my appreciation and gratitude to you and your colleagues for giving me the opportunity to promote EXIM Bank's Trade Finance Solutions today. It's an honor to be with you, and welcome to our audience members as well. Today, I'd like to talk to you about what EXIM Bank does and give you an overview of a few of the major programs we have, and also describe to you how they can benefit U.S. exporters. So we're going to do a deeper dive on some of our products, such as export credit insurance and export working capital. And later in the presentation, I want to share some tools for exporters and resources for exporters. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to start with who we are and what we do at EXIM Bank. So by way of introduction, EXIM is a federal government agency, and we serve as the official export credit agency of the United States. We were established in 1934. So this year we're celebrating, my colleagues and I were pleased to be celebrating our 90th anniversary. Washington, D.C. is the location of our headquarters. It's supported by 12 regional offices. And our mission, simply put, EXIM's mission is to create and sustain jobs by increasing U.S. export sales. Now, in addition to our mission statement, we have two guiding principles, and they are key to what we do at EXIM. First of all, EXIM Bank programs fill gaps and complement private sector financing for private sector lenders and insurance offerings. And then secondly, we level the playing field for U.S. companies competing for global sales. So these are an integral part of what we do and support our mission statement to increase economic growth, the U.S. GDP through exporting, and our trade finance solutions help exporters get to the next level of their international business development. The Minority and Women-Owned Business Outreach Group, of which I'm a proud member, It's a dedicated team of trade finance specialists and export counselors who work with minority-owned, women-owned, and veteran-owned businesses, as well as business owners with disabilities to help them gain access to EXIM financing. The MWOB team seeks to expand inclusiveness by engaging those in the underserved business community who are interested in exporting their goods and services. Essentially, we're devoted to the target audiences listed here, various groups belonging to the underserved business community, as seen here in the middle column. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about small businesses. Small business is a gigantic priority at EXIM Bank. Let me draw your attention to this statistic inside the square, 87.1%. In FY 2023, small business transactions made up approximately 87% of the bank's portfolio. And I know that may be difficult to believe because you typically hear about the large dollar transactions or support given to large corporations, such as the Fortune 500 members. But actually, it's the small businesses that benefit the most from EXIM support. And this is on a transaction basis. Why should you export? It's safe to say exporting can be one of the best ways to expand your business. And I'd like to highlight four principal reasons listed here on the slide. Number one, wider access to customers and businesses. And you can see here approximately 95% of the world's consumers are located outside the US. So it is a way to expand your reach to more consumers and businesses depending on the business model, your sales and distribution channels. Number two, diversifying your market opportunities and diversifying your business portfolio, especially if there's a downturn in the economy. This gives you a way to offset the effects of a local recession, for example. Number three, according to the U.S. Commercial Service, companies that export are more profitable. And number four, in some cases, minority-owned businesses are uniquely qualified to connect with export markets. So if you are doing well domestically, just imagine how well you could be doing if you are exporting. There is risk associated with exporting. Businesses involved in international trade have to deal not only with risks locally, but also other business development risks such as shipping, intellectual property protection, foreign exchange, and of course, credit risk, which we'll talk about more today. And that's why a small percentage, only 1% of US businesses export. EXIM Bank products and solutions mitigate or reduce that risk for exporters, and I'll explain why as we move along. Now, because we are the Export Credit Agency of the United States, our financing makes the difference between winning or losing a sale or a contract. You should know that our products minimize risk for the exporter as well as the importer or foreign buyer. On this slide, we cover three traditional trade finance solutions. Number one, EXIM improves competitiveness of the U.S. exporter by ensuring your foreign receivables. And this is also known as export credit insurance. Number two, EXIM assists the exporter in obtaining working capital financing for your pre-export needs. This is the Export Working Capital Program supported by loan guarantees from EXIM. And then number three is an example of medium and long-term finance. EXIM supports capital goods and capital equipment exports with term loans for your foreign buyers. So it's buyer financing or term financing in case your buyers are having difficulty getting a loan, or it may be a situation in a developing economy or emerging market with prohibitively high interest rates. So this is a way to get access to lending at more affordable interest rates, and it's designed for medium and long-term finance. But for today's purposes, we're going to cover the shorter term transactions of export credit insurance and export working capital. Here you can see the full spectrum of trade finance solutions, pre-export financing on the left side of the screen, and then post-export financing on the right. And we do have some examples. Under pre-export financing, you can see the Working Capital Loan Guarantee Program. And then below that is Make More in America, which supports domestic manufacturing. It's a relatively new program at EXIM Bank, and I'll cover that. I'll cover both topics later. And then on the right side, post-export financing, A good example of that is the export credit insurance and then also loan guarantees. And on an exceptional basis, EXIM makes available direct loans. So we'll cover a few of these major programs as I move forward. Now, the working capital loan guarantee, uh, they provide the funds you need to fulfill orders, and the loan proceeds can be used to purchase the finished product that you may be exporting, raw materials, additional labor, overhead fees, and any legitimate costs associated with the shorter term export transaction, typically up to 1 year. So how does it work? EXIM provides a 90% loan backing guarantee to lenders of export-related loans, which makes lenders more willing and more comfortable to finance export transactions. The loans are either transaction specific or can be a revolving line of credit. The term is generally 1 year, as I mentioned, and it can extend up to 2 or even 3 years. And there's no minimum or maximum amount for EXIM, but I should mention that lenders, you'll be working with a loan officer at a bank. Your lender may have expectations or set parameters for the loan size, but it's not EXIM Bank setting a minimum or maximum amount. Next, let's take a look at um, working capital loan guarantee, a flow chart. Starting on the left side, there's an export opportunity you want to take advantage of, but you need financing for receivables and inventory tied to an export transaction. So starting on the left, we're moving through this flow chart. Step 2, you apply for a working capital loan, but your lender will not finance export-related collateral, not willing to assume the risk. So steps 3 and 4, moving forward. However, lenders with delegated authority process and finance the loan per EXIM guidelines. Then the loan proceeds are used to fulfill the export sale. So this is the representative case of a working capital loan guarantee, and you'll experience something similar to this or a variation on this theme if you decide to apply for a working capital loan. Now we'll change gears and look at a post-export finance tool, specifically the export credit insurance. And this is what we're most known for at the Export Credit Agency of the United States. Essentially, it's an insurance policy covering receivables generated from export sales, and it protects the exporter against non-payment by international buyers. So let's look at some of the benefits. Um, in addition to risk protection or risk mitigation, which I mentioned earlier, the policy is a bargaining or a sales tool because you can offer credit in the form of open account terms to buyers. This benefits you as well as the foreign buyer because you're not requiring cash in advance. In these circumstances, your customer may increase their order with you, knowing that you're not expecting payment for 30 or 60 or let's say 90 days, whatever terms you've negotiated and you've agreed to. So these are three of the key benefits. And we're also looking at export credit insurance as a financing aid because the insured foreign receivables may be added to your business. You can add these to your borrowing base, providing you with access to financing. And EXIM's insurance enhances the quality of your firm's balance sheet. In other words, a specific current asset on your balance sheet, in this case, the foreign receivable. Your foreign receivables become insured, allowing your company to borrow against those receivables in the form of an advance or a short-term financing facility. So this allows you to accelerate access to cash flow, essentially, and you're tying an advance to your insured foreign receivables. Something to keep in mind if you need access to cash flow or the next round of working capital needs. So how does export credit insurance work? As we did before with the working capital loan guarantee program, let's take a look at a representative case here. A transaction utilizing export credit insurance is outlined here. And starting on the left side, you've identified your customer, the farm buyer, and you apply for export credit insurance. When approved, you offer credit terms and the farm buyer agrees to the terms. Moving forward, the product is shipped, the shipment gets reported, and then the premium is paid at that time. And This is what's so great about the insurance policy. You pay the premiums only when you ship the product, not monthly as most insurance policies require. So let's look at what's covered by the export credit insurance. It protects you if your customer doesn't pay based upon two kinds of risk. One is commercial and the other is political, as you can see here. Examples of these are if your buyer loses his or her import license, commits fraud, and sometimes there may be an outbreak of civil unrest or an occurrence, something geopolitical, an outbreak of war in the destination country. The government may interfere with currency convertibility. Just to name a few, these are just a few examples of situations in which you're covered should they occur. So you're getting with an EXIM Bank policy, you're getting more bang for your buck. It's covering both commercial and political risk. Now, the what I'd like to do is talk to you about a new policy launched this year. Um, it was launched during EXIM's Global Business Development Summit in Washington, D.C. in April, and it's called Equity Express Select. This type of policy also covers receivables generated by international sales, and it's designed specifically for underserved businesses, including minority, women, veteran, rural, and disability-owned companies. So with Equity Express Select, your company gets access to a dedicated in-house customer service team ready to guide you through every step of the process, from explaining policy benefits and reviewing qualifications to streamlining the application and addressing your concerns along the way. Here are some of the details for the benefits. 95% coverage, no deductible. There's no application fee or policy issuance fee. As I said earlier, you get a dedicated customer service team and then pay as you ship premium. So you're only going to pay the premium at the time of shipping or shortly thereafter, rather than on a monthly basis. So my colleagues and I in the MWB division, we're proud that we have an insurance policy that reflects our priorities and ensures that the underserved business community, the members of the underserved business community are getting the attention they deserve and greater accessibility to export credit insurance. So we're pleased that we now have this new type of insurance available. Now, I'd like to provide a case study just to pull it all together, because this company, Acoustic Sheep, utilizes both export credit insurance and the working capital loan guarantee program, which we've covered in the earlier part of the presentation. So Acoustic Sheep, it is an EXIM Bank policyholder, a woman-owned small business. It's an award-winning company based in Erie, Pennsylvania, and the founder, Dr. Wei-Shin Lai, and her husband, Jason Wolf, started the business in 2007 from their kitchen table while working full time. The story started when Dr. Wei-Shin Lai was having trouble falling asleep after receiving patient phone calls in the middle of the night, and she needed to listen to some meditative music to help her relax. But headphones were bulky, as you know, and earbuds can be uncomfortable. Since there were no headphones specifically designed for sleeping on the market, she invented her own. After tens of millions in sales and business on all 7 continents, Acoustic Sheep customizes this experience for the headphones, and it's experienced tremendous growth since 2007, and it's been able to expand its exports by taking advantage of both the export credit insurance and the export working capital. Now, something new, if our audience members ask me what's new or what's trending at EXIM Bank in the 2020s, this is a good example. It's a new tool in our toolbox for exporters and for domestic manufacturing specifically. This initiative, Make More in America, it's a new authority designed to build up and revitalize U.S. domestic manufacturing. This is one of several tools that the U.S. government now has to reshore, that is to start bringing supply chains closer and into the United States. What's interesting about this new initiative is that we can look at it through a different type of policy lens. And let me describe to you some of the key components. The export nexus may be new terminology to you. This is the policy trigger sought by EXIM to determine whether we can be involved in a potential opportunity. And essentially what it means is you need to earmark a certain level of domestic production. So if you get approved for an MMIA project and you're receiving EXIM financing, then what EXIM is seeking is that you export or earmark for exports the a portion, a percentage of the total domestic production that falls between 15 to 25%. So that's what we mean by export nexus or export connection. You need to earmark 15% to 25%, reasonable percentage. The expectation is that you don't have to export 100%. So this is, again, a reasonable amount. The export nexus states that you should be looking at exports in the range of 15 to 25% of the domestic production. And then secondly, jobs. The core mission of EXIM has not changed here. EXIM will look at construction jobs and operating jobs to scale support. It's a number that can scale quite quickly, and it's tied to a metric called the job year. Which has been calculated at approximately $205,000. So for every 5.3 jobs, your company would be eligible for up to approximately $1 million in support. And that's based on the metric called the job year. So this initiative, Make More in America, it's introducing flexibilities to make our manufacturers more competitive and to encourage reshoring of supply chains. And it's something you should consider if you want to expand your domestic production and with the export nexus in mind, that you would be exporting 15 to 25% of your total production in the near future. When it comes to industries that we support, EXIM does provide support to a large variety, as you can see here, from manufacturing to power generation to renewable energy and even agribusiness. And I want to talk about services while we're here. I know that some of our audience members may have expertise in a particular type of service, whether it be consulting or education or training. EXIM Bank provides support to a wide range of services, everything from information and communications technology to architecture, construction management, and engineering expertise, to healthcare, medical personnel, and education and training. So if you are a business and you provide a service, please don't dismiss receiving support from EXIM. Eligibility criteria you can see here. We do have the majority content rule, products shipped from the US with more than 50% US content. That's a requirement. The operating history, the standard operating history is 3 years, as indicated here, but there is some flexibility, and you need to have a minimum of 1 year, 1 to 2 years, preferably generating revenue, and you have your financials and tax returns. So 3 years ideally, but there is some flexibility, and the underwriters are willing to take a look at the mitigating factors and merits of the case. If you have less than 3 years, it's still worth considering. A DUNS number or DMB is required, and then something relatively new. It went into effect, I believe, in 2022. It's the UEI or Unique Entity Identifier. You'll need to obtain and maintain an active registration through SAM.gov, and SAM is System for Award Management. And then make sure that once you register, you do activate the number. So that's required in addition to the DMB. So these are just some of the basic export qualifications I wanted to share with you. We do have a few restrictions. We are a federal government agency, so some restrictions are listed here. We don't support any transactions that involve another country's military, only in the event, there are some exceptions, only in the event of humanitarian efforts such as drug interdiction or supplying emergency vehicles for a natural disaster. And some examples are ambulances and fire trucks in that case. Um, the exports must leave from the United States. And again, we mentioned the US content policy. The products must contain at least 51% or greater of US content for short-term transactions, as I mentioned. And then for medium-term transactions, the US content must be at least 85%. So it is larger for medium-term finance. Just wanted to make that clarification. So at this stage, let's look at, I'd like to change gears and share with you some tools for exporters and then later resources for exporters. Things that you can find on the EXIM website, for example, and will assist you as you explore export development opportunities. At EXIM, we have something called the country limitation schedule. Um, we are open for cover. That's the phrase we use, open for cover in more than 180 countries. However, I do like to advise audience members and clients to view the country limitation schedule when they start to explore exporting to see whether we're open, that is providing coverage in that country and for how long, and whether it's a public sector or private sector transaction. So you can search in alphabetical order by your country or countries of interest, and you'll see in table format the timeline or tenor of the transaction. It's short, medium, and long. Short is 1 year, and medium term is typically 1 to 5 years. And you'll see a breakdown for short, medium, and long term. And then also in the table, whether it's a public sector or private sector transaction. So in some countries, if we do have limitations, we may be, excuse me, we may still be open for cover, but it could be for short term only. And then there may be additional requirements. So we encourage you to look at the notes section just to see whether there are additional requirements or um, limitations for that country of interest. So definitely a good tool, and it's never too early to take a look at this country limitation schedule even before you start negotiating um, with potential buyers. Now, preparation, another tool for exporters we'd like you to consider. It's it can be applicable to different contexts. One is meetings with prospective buyers. You may be involved in a matchmaking service arranged by, let's say, the U.S. Commercial Service, or it could be a situation in which you've applied for and joined a trade mission. You could be traveling overseas and engaged in meetings with foreign buyers or foreign partners, as the case may be. So it's definitely helpful to know the basic payment methods available to the exporter and the importer, such as cash in advance, letters of credit, documentary letters of credit or LCs, a bank facilitated payment method, which includes not only the importer and exporter, but also the importer's bank and exporter's bank, and sometimes an advising or confirming bank. So it's a time honored and time tested and highly secure method of payment, one to be familiar with. Documentary collections, also bank facilitated payment method, as you can see here. And then the credit terms, that's what we're focusing on for today under the export credit insurance, selling on credit or open account terms. And then a fifth one is consignment. So we recommend that in preparation for your meetings, you're at least familiar with the basics. And you can find this information. There are a lot of good resources, including our host today, Shipping Solutions, has a blog and this type of information I know released earlier this year. So you can take a look at Shipping Solutions and their blog for the types of basic payment methods. So are you ready to discuss payment options when you're meeting with prospective buyers? Do you extend credit terms in domestic sales? And we recommend that you be prepared to discuss credit terms with prospective foreign buyers in any context. But this could also be helpful on your trade missions if you're participating in 2025 in a trade mission. Now, something new that we have country guides. EXIM has put together a set of country guides specializing in market opportunities and strategies for American exporters. And you can see some of the, we have some examples here. EXIM is pleased to offer these free guides created in collaboration with the U.S. Commercial Service, covering 6 of the leading export markets for U.S. businesses. If you're thinking about expanding internationally, these guides are a great starting point for market research on, we have, as you can see, Canada, Germany, Mexico, Japan, Colombia, and South Korea. And then there's a compilation, the North America guide covers both our neighbors, Canada and Mexico. So let me show you another way of looking at this. I've highlighted the US top 12 export markets for our audience members. And you can see we have country guides available for the top ranked countries for exports. Now, this is merchandise exports only. I'm not including imports here, and it's not services. So it's strictly goods or products, what the US Census Bureau calls merchandise exports. And the data I combined here, these statistics, the source, if you're curious, is from the US Census Bureau. So our country guides produced by EXIM, we have Canada, Mexico, Germany, Japan, South Korea, and Colombia. Colombia is not in the top 12, but it is a major export market with which we have a free trade agreement, US-Colombia free trade agreement. Uh, so let me go back and just show you quickly. These are the guides we now have available in partnership with the US Commercial Service. So if you're interested in these markets, please let me know and we'll get you the resources and links. So let's go to another topic. Are you ready to export? Um, the next topic here is to consider export readiness. In other words, do you have a product or service with a specialty or uniqueness or niche that will draw customers to your business? Which countries should you select for exporting? Maybe you should consider partnering or teaming with another US company until you're ready. That's an option. Um, the MWOB division is here to help you with these and other export readiness topics, including resources to get the counseling and training you'll need to export successfully, and connecting you with organizations that assist with finding buyers for your product or service and can provide guidance with your international business planning. So what I'd like to do is close out with the additional resources and assistance that we recommend you consider. Because EXIM Bank is a relatively small agency and we rely on the resources I'm about to share with you to help raise awareness about exports and EXIM's trade finance solutions. So first of all, we have our insurance brokers, as you can see here. Our brokers are paid for by EXIM and they are of little or no cost to you, the exporter. And at EXIM, we strongly encourage you to use an insurance broker. A very high number of our clients do choose that option to work with a private sector broker. A broker can assist you in the application process, maintenance of the policy, filing claims if the need arises, and all at little or no cost to you. A list of brokers registered with EXIM can be found on EXIM's website under the insurance broker locator, and you have the QR code. We decided new for this presentation. We've introduced the QR codes on this slide so you can get quick access to our resources. So next we have our Regional Export Promotion Program, or REP members, and these are organizations at the state and local levels that assist us in raising awareness about EXIM. Our REP members play a vital role in international business planning, export counseling, educational programming, and getting businesses export ready. Going back to that topic of export readiness, the REP members are a valuable resource for helping you get export ready if you're just starting out. Definitely seek out a rep organization. They are located throughout the United States and listed on our website under the rep locator. You can search by state and locate the one closest to you. Also, I want to mention our delegated authority lenders, also known as DA lenders. These are lenders that have entered into a master guarantee agreement with EXIM to finance export related loans. The DA or delegated authority lenders are a valuable resource for you to consider, and you can locate them on our website as well. Most of the major banks are DA lenders with EXIM, and in fact, we work with financial institutions of all sizes in support of our working capital programs. So I encourage you to visit the site, select the lender of interest, and also the contact person identified with that lender. That is the person who's very knowledgeable of and well-versed in EXIM programs. So that's a great resource for you to consider if you're looking for the shorter term working capital solutions. We have this network of experienced DA lenders or delegated authority. It's approximately 50 banks nationwide, and definitely encourage you to take a look at our lender locator. So that covers the additional resources that I wanted to share with you. Please feel free to use the QR codes. You can also, you see here, request a consultation with an MWOB a business development specialist and learn more about upcoming events. We have an events page and on-demand webinars. So feel free to take advantage of these. Now, staying connected with EXIM, we have the social media examples here. The third one on the list is the EXIM blog, which I want to bring to your attention because our outreach and education division at EXIM through grow.exim.gov has a wonderful, it's a wealth of knowledge with articles on different trade finance solutions and export related topics, and various EXIM employees contribute to the blog. So if you want to do a deeper dive on what we have on EXIM, the website, I would encourage you to take a look at grow.exim.gov. The export markets I mentioned earlier, I had 12 of the leading export markets. We do have an infographic, which you can find at grow.exim.gov with our 15 leading export markets in 2023 and the leading industries and for export, the industries and sectors for the United States. So you might like to explore that infographic more at grow.exim.gov. So I'm happy, David, to take questions. I know we have some time left, and I can go back to let the audience members, if they want to try these QR codes here at additional resources.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Jonathan. Thanks for that information. Yeah, and I think if you have that slide up, that may be helpful, and you can jump around if you need to. Encourage everyone, if you do have some questions, we've got a couple in the Q&A window in Zoom, which you should find at the bottom of your screen most of the time. Although if you're, depending on the device you're watching this webinar in, it may be located somewhere else. But please post your questions in the Q&A window, and we will read them to Jonathan, and he can answer them. But if I may have the privilege of asking the first couple, Jonathan, how do most exporters gain entry with EXIM Bank? Do they reach out directly to the bank? Is it their banker or lender who recommends them? Do they go to one of the insurance brokers? What is the typical way that people get involved with these great EXIM Bank programs?
Yes, there are different ways to approach EXIM. We do have our EXIM events page. So for general learning topics and to do a deeper dive on export credit insurance or the export working capital program, we recommend the webinars. Now, I'm a member of the MWOB team, Minority and Women-Owned Business Outreach. So for the underserved business community, we recommend you come through headquarters first if you are a member of the underserved business community and set up a consultation with a trade finance specialist. We also, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we have the regional offices. There are 12 located throughout the United States. So there may be a regional director, a business development specialist closer to one of the businesses, and that can be another way to approach EXIM. But for the underserved business community, we'd like you to come through the MWOB team, and you're welcome to schedule a consultation, you can go to our landing page, and the QR code is here to request a consultation. That would be the best way to start. And then we can direct you accordingly within the bank, whether it be an insurance policy or a loan guarantee program for working capital, or maybe a different part of the bank, such as project finance, structured and project finance. So we can help in the MWB division build a roadmap and help the pre-client, the early client, get to the right part of EXIM Bank.
Okay. And then when for an exporter, when in their export planning process, is it advisable for them to start thinking about the services that are being available through the EXIM Bank as they're creating an export plan for the business, as they start talking with specific potential customers in specific markets, after they've made a sale? When would you recommend that an exporter start thinking about taking advantage of these great XM services?
Well, we do recommend building an international business plan and working with, as I mentioned, and you can see on this slide, the Regional Export Promotion Program members or REP. Um, if you're new to exporting, uh, it's important to work with an export counselor who can put together the basics of an international business plan. And in that plan, you could even incorporate the export credit insurance and export working capital in order to get to the next level of business development. Um, so they are tools that help our businesses grow in international trade, and it would be helpful to at least be aware of them at that level. But for the export working capital program, we would recommend reaching out a few months in advance to the MWOB team, and that way you can start putting things in place. The same with export credit insurance. The exporter, U.S. based, is going to need a purchase order, and so I would say at even before negotiating all the terms and conditions of the purchase order, a few months in advance, make sure you're letting EXIM know, or your primary contact, whether it be headquarters or the regional office, a few months in advance.
Okay. And how closely do you work with other federal agencies that are have a shared mission of promoting exporting, like the Small Business Development Centers and the U.S. Commercial Service?
Yes, good question. We have uh, very strong partnerships with our sister agencies at the federal level. The SBA has the Office of International Trade, for example, and then under Commerce, there's the International Trade Administration, or ITA, and within ITA is the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service. So one of our key partners is the U.S. Commercial Service. You'll frequently find us doing joint projects with our colleagues at the SBA, Office of International Trade, or the U.S. Commercial Service. Especially with the U.S. Commercial Service, the U.S. exporter may need to identify potential buyers or foreign partners, as the case may be, or get customized market research. We recommend you start with the country guides. I gave you some examples earlier, but you may need to do a deeper dive and determine whether there's sufficient demand for the product or service or expertise that's going to be exported. So we encourage you to look at the federal resources, and if you're trying to identify potential buyers or foreign partners. SBDCs are critical part of the picture. In our REP program, I know we have several SBDCs at the local level who have join the network of Regional Export Promotion Program members. So definitely reach out to an SBDC if you're interested in building an international business plan. You're not sure where to turn. You're not sure what are the key components of a business plan. We strongly recommend you talk to an export counselor at the small business development centers, and take a look at our rep locator to see whether any are listed near you for our audience members. Now, state, we also have state members. The state level international trade offices are a critical part of the picture, and many of them have the STEP grants that make funding available to businesses and potential exporters in their individual states. So that's something else to consider at the state level. The economic development agencies may have an export promotion program and may have applied for and won a grant from the SBA for funding purposes. So another great resource that we recommend considering. So federal, state, and local, all three.
Okay, great. Um, we have a question from someone who's very interested in those various country guides that you mentioned, but she can't find them on the EXIM website. Where are those located?
Okay, let me go back to that slide. I can follow up and send the resources and links for the audience members today. So I'd be happy to make that available to you for those. We have 7 guides, including North America, which covers both Canada and Mexico. So that's something I'm certainly happy to do as follow-up.
Yeah, and we'll be publishing a resources page after this webinar is finished with links to the various different things that Jonathan mentioned. So we'll make sure to get a link to that on that page as well.
Okay. A good place to start is going back to the XM blog here, how to stay connected with us through grow.xm.gov. Um, for videos, infographics, articles submitted by various XM employees, I definitely recommend the blog. Um, and I know, David, that you at Shipping Solutions, you have a similar blog and various submissions throughout the year by you and your colleagues.
Yeah. And Kari, there's a couple links posted in the Q&A screen. Will you copy those into the chat so everyone has access to those from some of your colleagues, Jonathan, at the Exim Bank with, I think, some of the links that we talked about here. So we'll get those put in the chat for everyone before we log off here. Does the Exim Bank charge any fees?
Well, not for the consultation. So the early stage process, you can get free consultations and access to various subject matter experts. Now, there are fees involved once the application is approved for either export credit insurance or export working capital. So, for example, I didn't give you earlier an example of the premiums for Equity Express Select. So if you are a member of the underserved business community and you get approved for the Equity Express Select policy, that's the new one we developed and launched in April this year. For example, the premium for 1 to 60 days, if that's what you've negotiated with your foreign buyer, 1 to 60 days, the premium is 55 cents per $100 of invoice value. So we base the quote on the invoice value at $100. And that's for 1 to 60 days. So the premium would be very affordable. It's one of it's a highly attractive feature of Equity Express Select. The affordability and the premiums are very reasonable.
For structured project financing, is that done through a broker as well?
No, the broker strictly for insurance. You have the option of working with an insurance broker if you decide to pursue an insurance policy, or you have the option of working directly with EXIM. Structured and project finance falls under what we call OBAF, which stands for Office of Board Authorized Finance. And we have a separate team in charge of project finance. It consists of loan officers, lawyers, and engineers, because there's a great deal of analysis involved, risk analysis, financial analysis, and it may even require, for example, infrastructure or mining. Um, it might even require the review of an engineer. So that's a different part of Exim Bank under the Office of Board Authorized Finance.
Okay. Someone asked if there is a contact for the EXIM Bank in Toronto.
Not in Toronto. We don't have offices outside the United States, so we would recommend at least coming to headquarters first, and then we could maybe provide our counterpart because Canada has its own version of an export-import bank. So if it's a Canada-based exporter, then we could help that person get the Canadian resources.
Okay. Another question. We are a woman-owned small business. We have used EXIM many years ago and are considering EXIM receivables insurance for a specific customer base. Is the best place to start by scheduling a consultation?
Yes, we would need to learn more about the business model. We'd also want to double check the country limitation schedule to make sure that XM is open for cover and if any restrictions are applicable in that case. So knowing the country or countries of destination. Um, and then we'd also like to walk the person through the qualifications, the eligibility criteria I talked about, including the majority content rule, 51% or greater if it's a product, although we do support services. So it would be helpful just to learn more about the business model, country of destination, and level of export experience if applicable. So definitely set up a women-owned business, minority-owned business should come through the MWOB team first at headquarters.
Okay, great. And I want to thank Eugene for giving us a bunch of links to put in the chat. Thank you, Eugene, for doing that. How may a company get connected with the team for board authorized finance?
Okay, what we would recommend first is taking, because we have examples and a application process. So what we recommend before making a connection is to go to the XM website and search on structured and project finance, and then go through we have some tools there available, and determine whether it's going to be applicable for the particular case. And if so, then we could do a consultation um, if it's applicable with the minority and women-owned business outreach group, and then determine whether we should make the referral to an OBAF loan officer. But we would recommend before that just looking at the resources on the website. And I know OBAF has put in a lot of, there's frequently asked questions, an example of the application process and what XM is seeking.
Okay. Um, that's all that questions that were in the Q&A for the moment. Any other questions here before we wrap up today's webinar? The number of questions is almost perfect to get us right up to the top of the hour. So that's worked out
Nicely done.
really well. So here is that resource page that has where we will also be putting up all these links that we've put in the chat here so far today. Thank you all for attending, and I want to thank you, Jonathan, for the great information. It was really interesting and I think helpful for companies who are willing to take advantage of that. Today's webinar has been recorded and we will be making it available on the Shipping Solutions website next week. It might take us a little longer than normal to get that up there, but I will send an email to everyone who registered for today's event with a link to the recording as soon as it is available. I mentioned that resources page on the website. It has links to everything that we've talked about today, as well as a link to our Passages International Trade blog. We do send out a newsletter twice a week, usually Tuesdays and Thursdays, with new posts to the blog that cover a variety of topics, including trade finance, but a lot on export documentation and compliance, as well as some import-related information as well. You'll see the URL on the slide, and we also have a QR code that we're using for the first time that you can use to get to that page. And I'd recommend that you check back there a little while after we're done here so that we can get those new links on there. We have several webinars on our calendar for 2025. I'll just give you a quick rundown of what those are. I will be presenting 12 documents required for exporting on Wednesday, January 15th. I will follow that up on Wednesday, February 19th with our Export Compliance Essentials webinar. That's usually one of the best attended webinars we host each year. So if you are interested in that, you might want to sign up early to make sure you reserve a spot for that. On Wednesday, March 19th, we have some staff from the U.S. Census Bureau who will be doing a presentation on using the general rules of interpretation to find the correct Schedule B codes for your exports. And of course, you need those Schedule B codes when you file your electronic export information through AES, and that is the responsibility of the Census Bureau. And then the Census Bureau staff will be back on Wednesday, April 16th for a review of changes to the U.S. foreign trade regulations. There are a number of changes that are coming or have been recently implemented, and we'll have a representative review those for us so that we can make sure we're all following the current regulations. So if you registered for this webinar or you are a subscriber to our Passages, the International Trade blog, I will be sending you emails with more information about these upcoming webinars. If you're not currently getting my emails, make sure you sign up on that blog link you see on the screen, and you'll get those webinar emails. And I finally want to also ask you to check out our Shipping Solutions YouTube channel, which is also listed on the slide. We've published dozens of short videos discussing the basics of exporting on the channel, and it's quickly growing in popularity. So check it out, and if you like it, I'd ask you to please subscribe to the channel. The popularity of our YouTube channel, our International Trade blog, and these webinars help us attract high-quality speakers like Jonathan Brady to help us keep up to date on the world of international trade. So if you like what you're seeing here, please like and share it so that we can keep getting great speakers. So thank you again, Jonathan, for your excellent presentation, and I want to thank everyone for joining with us, and I wish everyone happy holidays.
Thank you very much.
Take care.